Hello again. So now we will continue from the first rigid body simulation for our scene, and I did notice something as I have been recording, because we changed the file names and we have been saving our saved states with $hip. So I think it's gonna be better if we change the file names to not using the $hip, because as we change the file name, the $hip changes. So for example, when I reloaded this in under a different name, the terrain did not show up. That was because it was looking for not ship animation hip file, but a different one. So just select terrain bake node and go where the files are and then just select by hand, and then ideally middle mouse click here and put in a hard path. That will work. Or you can also, I think the project, yeah, you can also put $job. So actually, let me do that. But this is now set to project production oriented, because if we put a $job here, actually let me just try it here, $job, yeah, and this is gonna give this path, which is also here. So that's not gonna change even if the name changes. Okay, so we can also say here $job, and let me see if it's gonna break it. No, it won't. And this way, even if the file name changes, because the product the project name doesn't change, so it should be still okay to work with. And we can do the same here, and ideally probably from now on I'll keep to that. Okay, so the last thing we did was the forest was working, so we you guys should have opened the scenes and gathered these cameras, and in the previous lesson we created the ship and the animated ship. The keys, right? Sorry. Yes, so we create the ship, and you should have copied these keys, and then create another one, an upper level, and I'll explain why in detail, why we have two separate ones. Okay, so now the first step is that we're gonna create another geometry node here, and I'm gonna create a new network and call this simulations. Simulations. Okay, this is gonna grow quite big, I would say. Okay, so let's call this first one mountain. Sorry. Mountain tip RBD, and I'm gonna color these green, and actually let's color the environment brown and assets blue. Okay, so now let's go inside the mountain. So what we need to do now is to bring in what we need to break, and for that we need to drop in an object merge, and then we need to bring in an object merge, and then bring in, actually maybe we keep it where it should. So let's go inside the terrain, heels low, and in here let's try to figure out what we need to cut out. So let's create a sphere. Because I already have the numbers, so punch these in. 431, 1.27856, 14.9479, 55.8171, minus 163, 431. Scale it by 18 times. Change it to polygons, frequency 20. That should line up somewhere there. I'm just gonna double check from my other scene as well. We think we put something. Well, yeah, sorry, this is not the right number. It should be 890431. Okay, and then you'll get this sphere there is cutting out. We'll use it for cutting it out. Let's now give it a bit of a broken up shape by using a mountain saw. And so give it a 16 for the height, element size 14.2, so it's not so spiky, and I think everything else is default. Default should be fine. And yeah, and then we're gonna, after this guy, we're gonna put a Boolean swap, and this goes here. And maybe before we connect, we can change the settings too. I'm going to check with my other scene while it's cooking, and probably we need to put that into shatter. Okay, and no, sorry, subtract. Okay, and then let's hook it up there, and it's gonna cook a bit while it's cutting it out. And it's gonna, I just want to make sure that it's doing the right thing. Sometimes the Boolean works very well. Sometimes, unfortunately, it doesn't, and I am not actually sure what makes a difference. Sometimes just moving a few vertices around solves a lot of problems. Sometimes you can use a polyfill. If the shape is not very important, you can always use like convert it to VDB, then the polygons, and then back. And okay, so this seems to be finished, but it's not responding yet. Come on. My video recording software doesn't do pause and continue, so that's why you're watching all of this stuff. Okay, I think it did work, and I'll be able to tell you very soon. Okay, I think it did work. So this is the part that is cut out now, and obviously we need the opposite as well. But I'm going to cache this as well, just so I like to cache everything. So let me put this on manual, and let this guy copy, paste. Let's call this static mountain. And a single frame. And let's give it a good name. Say forest one, terrain baked static. Okay, and cook it. Okay, that's done. And now let's copy paste this, and then let's get the intersection area. So it's gonna give us what is inside, which we can use for which then we can use for shattering and simulating. And this again is going to take a little time, and as we wait, I can maybe explain the process a little bit. The reason we created two one animated ship is that when we are running the pyro simulations, oh, it's finished. Okay, I'll get to the detail while when we need to then. So let's do this now. Let's copy paste this guy again, and let's call this time RBD. Let's call it active to shatter. Okay, and give it another name. This was static, so let's call it to sim. Save. Okay, so now if we merge these two guys, you should get the whole mountain again. Okay, cool. As you can see, it's good. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do now is bring this guy and this guy in our new network. Okay, I need to be more careful with where I click or not, because I'm not just working for myself at the moment. Come on. Okay. Actually, we can even hide this now because we don't need it. So object merge into this. Terrain hills low. I didn't put actually, to make it a bit more clean. Let's go back inside here. Let's put nulls. Okay, create another one. Give it a good name. Sometimes scenes get really big, so it's really important to obviously name this really good. Okay, and the next thing we can do now is, like I said, let's go back here. Let's bring in the where is it? Okay, out active to shatter. Okay, so that's our tool shatter. And then let's bring in our static geometry, because we're gonna actually, we don't need to bring it in here. We can directly call it in here. Okay. So now, this part I need to do it a little bit more clear, obviously. Okay, I need to wait for the other scene to cook. I'm sorry. Okay, so I can generate, because I'm trying to match obviously everything else the same. And okay, let's bring in our ship as well. Ship. Since this is going to be for collisions only, we can use our animated ship. Okay, and if we look through the camera, activate this. Okay, and now we have the mountain. Okay, now we have to do the shattering. Okay, so the way I can do this is by, I did it in a way that by using a few booleans, just so it's a bit more interesting, and also to avoid geometry causing problem later on. And if you're going to also export it sometimes to RenderMan, it's good to sometimes fix the intersections on itself. So the first thing I did is that I put a divide, and I triangulated this geometry, which I'll show you what it does. This is most likely not necessary while you are in, if you're only working in Mantra, but keep in mind that inconsistencies, disconnected faces like this can sometimes cause problem moving to other renderers. So just to avoid, this is what I do, and it does work. So as you can see, it connected all those edges now, and then I kind of throw in a fuse just to make sure. This is probably not, I'm just being over cautious maybe. And then I'm going to again, well, we did a good job, so I don't need to do a clean up. Actually, we have a name here because this is gonna go inside a simulation, so it's ideal not to have anything at all. And then I'm gonna put I don't have any groups, so then I'm gonna put a boolean as well. This time I'm gonna change operation to resolve, and I'm just gonna leave it like that, and then it didn't find any intersections, which is good. Okay, so now this is our geometry ready to cut. So let's put another null here, ready to cut, and then now we can creating our cut geometry. So let's create a VDB from polygons. Let's get this guy here. Let's change the voxel size to 1 before we connect it. Change it from surface to density. Okay, let's hook it up. And I think that's okay. So let's scatter some points. Change the value to 20 and relax the iterations to 20. Okay. Let's change this to 2. Okay, so we have a bit more evenly disrupted points. Let's put an attribute randomize, and then let's give this like a random normal, because we're going to copy objects on it. Change the distribution to inside sphere, and if we check our normals now here, we should have random normals. Okay, and then now let's create a sphere here. Polygon, default size, uniform scale 10, frequency 10. Let's put another mountain sub. Okay, and height 5. You can focus on, look at something. Height 5, element size 10. Okay, and then drop in a copy to points. So left, left, right, right. So you get that kind of intersecting boxes. everywhere. And then we're gonna do another one. So basically what I want is that I want more distribution. Where is the ship? Let me see where the ship is. So I want more distribution. I want smaller points obviously there. So I'm gonna distribute more pieces there. But then I want to, because it's sometimes you can overdo proceduralizing a scene, but even this is an overkill. I will still show it this way because this ship can move many times to 5 meters to the left, 5 meters to the right, 5 seconds back, 5 seconds forward, 5 frames forward in the shot context. So in order to avoid, or just to like we could hand paint that area always, but then every time we have to hand paint it. But now the idea is, although like I said, this is a bit of an overkill, so what I'm gonna do now is that I'm gonna get my animated ship, and that's why I brought it here, and then I'm going to figure out roughly the beginning at the end of this collision area, collision frames, so I get a bit of a distribution. So I'm going to put 2 time shift nodes. I'm going to say this is 1084, and then there are other ways to do this. I mean, we can do, I think, a ghosting effect to where this ship has been traveling towards, but this is just easier at the moment, at least. 1086. Okay, I'm gonna merge these guys. Okay, this should give me 2 of these. It's just a bit more like a trail. Well, actually, I did it like that before, but let's try to. Oh, bummer. Okay, I should stick to my plan, and let's hope it saved the temp file. Houdini temp 24th 1018. I don't see any error. No. Okay, I'm gonna pause the video and I'll get back once I redo everything. Okay, back to recording. So I kind of regenerated pretty much everything until my Houdini crashed. So I'm just going to be a bit more cautious now. So please save your scene 04_mountain_tip_RBD 1.hip or hiplc or hipnc, as whatever you're using. So the last thing we were trying to do was to distribute some more points where the ship will pass from. I think I didn't add this one. Okay, let me add this one as well. So this is where we were bringing the ship. Okay. Okay. And now what I want is, I'm going to simplify it a bit more. I'm going to go to this frame where I see these intersections are happening. Okay, so that's 1084. Let's go time shift, freeze it at 1084. Okay, so now I'm going to give it an attribute. So where should I do that? I should add in here. Okay, let's move. The other thing, if you don't like the way the connection lines are up, I prefer the curved one. So that's Shift S. Just gives, I think, a bit more organization. It works better. Okay, so let's move this guy here. Let's give a bit more space here. Okay, here we go. All right. So now I want to create a value called let's say f at ship equals 1. Copy paste. that shit equals 0. Attribute transfer from this guy to this guy. Okay, cooking. Come on, all right. And we want only ship value to go. And now, sorry, you need to reverse these connections. So let's put this here actually. So we'll tidy it up. Let's put this here. Okay, so so we have some values probably around this tip area. Let's visualize that, and then we need to play with the range. So visualize ramped attribute. I don't want that. I want the ship. That's probably really wide. Okay, so we probably want something like that. But so what I did previously, because I want to generate the exact same settings, I used 2 time shifts, one at 84, one at 86. So let's do it again, because any fluctuation in these values is going to create different results, obviously, and I don't want surprises later on. Okay, and now let's change the fall off values, distance threshold to 1.13. That's 1 meter, 13 centimeters, and a little fade off by blend width 159. Okay, so now we are aiming to distribute more smaller pieces around here, basically. So let's put a scatter here, and on the scatter we can turn on density attribute and say ship. Okay, as you can see, it'll put everything up, but I can turn off the relax iterations now, or off, and then I only want 60 points. Okay, and now I'm going to create this exact same area again. So copy and paste, but then I want my uniform scale of the sphere to be 4, so they're smaller obviously, and the mountain values 4 by 6. Okay, and then this is gonna give me some more points there, and randomize is same. Okay, so now I can merge these two outputs. And as you can see, I have more spheres there. And now I'm going to fix the normals. Well, because we use the randomize and copy, so we create a random normal attribute to copy the spheres so they kind of turn randomly, but then obviously this affects the visual look of it as well. So let's just fix that. These might actually be verti has for it might help for the boolean as well. Let's put a boolean, and now let's select this boolean to shatter, and then the ready to cut is our main input. And then actually before I do that, I'm gonna save again, and then this goes on to right, and then we wait. Alright, so our chopping is finished now, and our normals are all messed up again, but let's fix those normals one more time. Let's leave it at vertices, I guess. Okay, and now if you put an explode view, we should get an exploded view of all of our pieces. Nice. So if you want more interior detail, you can always increase the frequency of these spheres, and it's going to this will increase your computation time, of course, but then it's going to make more rocky detailed. But for this simulation itself, this is not necessary. I don't think so. It's not a close-up, and this is only a tutorial. Okay, so basically now this is ready for simming. Actually, let's clean that up as well. Actually, delete, because we create that ship attribute. Okay, and there's nothing. So now let's name this out sim. Okay, and now let's create a rest attribute, so we know our pieces, every vertice's birthplace. Okay, sorry about that. So now we are going to create a DOP network and then feed this information into this simulation. So in order to do that, let's create what we can do is actually, let's delete that rest. Let's create the DOP network. Let's call it MountainRBD. Let's call it, oops, sorry, not typing. Mountain tip RBD sim. Okay, now what we can do is that make sure that here you have the correct simulation network active, and then at this stage you can reselect your sim, and then from the shelf tool we can go to rigid bodies, and we can then select RBD fractured objects and click on RBD packed objects, and then it's going to say select objects for RBD fractured objects. So we select our object, hit enter, and then it's going to create the necessary connections in that specific custom DOP-net we created. Okay, and let's go to the first frame, and if we go inside, you're going to see that we have our very basic DOP-net. So this is not even going to do anything because there's not even gravity here. Okay, cool, but that's a good start. So now what we need to do obviously is to create our static collision objects and all that areas. So what we want is basically and anyway, this is what I did, is that once we shatter, okay, so let's go back to the shatter, because I think we were supposed to turn on some settings which we didn't, because I'm gonna need the groups created from the shatter. So let's go back to terrain and heal, and let's go back to Boolean 2 where we use it for intersection only. I'm gonna cancel it because I want to turn on the option first. Okay. Okay, so let's turn on B inside A. Okay, and let it cook now this time. Because what we're gonna do is that in case we need it, we're gonna use the base group. Okay, it's happening very often. Okay, I'll check back to you as soon as I know that it's working fine. Okay, back to recording. So yes, last time I asked you to go back to the shatter boolean operation to do something else, but I decided to just skip that now. So because it's crashing and actually we don't need it. So the last thing we were doing was we created a .NET, and then we prepared our object for simulation, but there was nothing inside for this to work yet as a collider or anything else. So what else we're gonna do now is that because every time I open my scene, I don't want again this expensive operation to recalculate. Instead of using a file cache, I'm going to start using a new node called stash. And stash is basically same thing like caching out, but it's kinda is like locking a file, but it's not. But it's I think it's a bit easier to manage. And this is what they last time Mr. Jeff Wagner made a presentation. They told us to kind of look into that, so I'll just use that. But just to get some more information, that what it does is it caches the input geometry in the node on command, and then uses it as the node's output. Very similar to locking, but additional features. The interaction is slightly more convenient. You can modify and override the cache geometry with who.geometry. You can link geometry parameter to a parameter on a parent asset. This allows asset inject geometry in the network without making the contents editable. Okay, so some more cool stuff. So let's name this in RBD pieces. So we have what now? We have there's 5,000 pieces here. Cool. So let's go stash input, and now every time Houdini opens, this is gonna come in. But since this is like a loader geo, like we mentioned before, I'm gonna color this green, and this is what will come out of the simulation, and I'm gonna color this. All my DOP imports will be black, and all my .NETs will be black, so I can kind of visually connect. Okay, these are related. The other way to see if there's a relationship is that you can turn on, not here, view, I think, show dependency for selected nodes. So actually this is very neat also. I'm gonna leave it open. Every time you select a node, and if there's a dependency, it's going to draw a line. Very, very neat. Okay, instead of doing it for all the objects. So the other thing now we need to do is that since we have them here, but we don't want all of these things to just start falling into from sky. So we're going to create a default value called I@active, but equal to 0. In RBD simulations, active value is what defines an object will move or not. So now what we can do next is that we're going to dive into our .NET, because we need to now create our terrain, static terrain, and we need to bring in our ship. So because these are not going to change dynamically. I'm going to create the static terrain here. So this is my obviously static terrain, but I don't need this whole object to be static for now, at least. For rigid body reasons, it may not be as important, but I will do it anyway so you can see how we can optimize this. Okay, so I'm going to put a box to define my area of interest. And so is this just 1 second please. I'm going to check with my other scene very quickly. It's the geo, yeah. Okay. So let's create a box. 100 meters, 200 meters, 200 meters, 8, 0, minus 97, the default size. So this gives us a box, as we can see, something like that, because that's where the ship hits and then comes down that way. And then I'm going to convert this to a VDB. 1 with density. Let's move it over here. And now I'm going to put an attribute wrangle, so I can do a volume sample and do a deletion work based on that value. So let's say float in equals volume sample, which we did before. Now they did say side effects did mention that height fields can be used as collisions for flip, but I don't know if that was the case for steel bullet, so I'm just making sure that I'm using a workflow that I know that will work. Okay, so if we activate this, we should just get that area now. Yep. Okay, so now, because maybe I want to use this for other reasons, like particle collisions, whatever, as well, I'm going to extrude this with an extrude volume with default settings. It's going to flatten me. It's going to give me a flattened base. Okay, it's perfect for my collisions. Closed geometry, waterproof. This works in every scenario in Houdini. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to again stash this, call it mountain call cache, and stash the input. Okay, and then I'm going to convert this to VDB. 0.5. Hook it up to mountain collision cache, wait for it to cook. Okay. Oh, so I got a bad number here. Please go back to your box 1 and change it to minus 97. My keystroke didn't register. Okay, because braking is happening here, otherwise we'll miss it. Okay, so we need to restash that obviously, and everything's going to shift to the proper place. And it should finish cooking fairly soon. And after this is over, extruding volume, waiting. This is taking a while. Okay. Almost there. And come on. All right. And then we're gonna create a null right here, create our static object, and then we're gonna add our rigid body, animated rigid body. No, not animated. We're gonna, okay, wait. Oh, it's finished. Cool. So let's just do this. Let's put a null. Let's call it. Well, I need to color this green. Let's call this out mountain static geo. Okay, so this goes in the VDB. Why? Because we can use this for much faster particle collisions and volume collisions. So let's call this collision VDB. Collision VDB out collision VDB, and then let's select this guy and make sure that our .NET is the correct one, and then let's go to collisions, and then let's select static object. Okay, and it's gonna tell us where it is, and it's this guy. Hit enter, and then it's gonna make all the necessary connections, which could be made by hand as well, but it's just more convenient, and it's error prone this way. I'm just waiting for all the hooking up to be done. And then we need to go back inside the .NET, but now we're just gonna wait for this to cook. Oh, this is taking a while. Should have saved. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know how many times Houdini crashes at work in a day for me, but it's usually when we do things out of the regular workflow, things tend to happen. It's just very important that everybody makes their tickets to side effects, so things can improve. Okay, I'm just gonna pause the video while this is happening. Okay, so this cooking is done, so let's go back in here and just put our static mountain to be visualized. Let's go back down here to our .NET, and in our .NET now we have the terrain, and we can merge in more collision objects. So what do we want? This to be obviously not very bouncy, and so due to this, because it's a static object, so basically now by default this will not work, and well, generally these settings are correct now, but because it created, oh, maybe this is a new feature from 16 to 16.5. Let me actually double check that, because it created a good setup by default. Go down. Yes, it did, because or maybe 15.5 static object would create a collision object in RBD without, that doesn't use a VDB, but now it is creating a collision source. Interesting. And this is by default creating a volume sampling turned on in the collision settings, and I'll show what that means. What are you cooking? Okay, and I'll show what it means, because by default, go away. By default, this comes as no, actually, where is it? Bullet data. Okay, sorry, my bad again. So it will work for particles, because there's one thing that is very important when you are using collision shelf tool, is that it is a good practice if you go back and just turn the flag on so it doesn't update anything but your collision object, and turn off display geometry. So if you have a VDB that you're using as a proxy, or if you want to visualize what your volume will be actually colliding with, you should always turn on collision guide. And as you can see, this is not gonna work, because if I had to pour water from here, it will leak down. But as you can see, the display geometry, this is so much higher, and it kind of gives the illusion that, oh yeah, I have a very good collision geometry, why is everything leaking down or disappearing? That's because certain solvers take different collision detection methods. In this case, the particles would fall down, the water would fall down, the pyro would leak down. For RBD it's different, but we need to make sure that this is correct. So now let's go to that VDB node, and we can actually direct our own VDB node from here to there, which is called out collision VDB, because ours is much higher resolution. And sorry, let's do that. And now this should generate us, or it will take a few more minutes. Well, it wasn't that slow at all. And since this is a static object, because use deforming geometry is turned off, this is only going to get baked once. It's going to give so much better resolution. However, always, once you know that it's in a good shape, please turn off collision guide, because the drawing is done per frame, and it's going to literally slow down your viewport draw per frame. And this is for particles, pyro, and flip. So go back to bullet data, turn off the display geometry again, and by default it creates a convex hull, which will not work for us, because that's how it looks like. It's very optimized, and this is most of how the pieces will be working also anyway. But since this the shape itself will not work, it's a one big solid object and it's not deforming, so we just change that to concave, and this gives us an exact shape as a collision geometry. But again, turn off the show guide, you can turn the display back on. So now what's going to happen is that if I put gravity on these pieces that will come from here, would just fall down and collide appropriately. So what we're going to do now is that we're going to bring in our ship. So let's find our ship. Yeah, I should move my machine to continue to manual when I'm moving things around. Maybe I need a reboot, I don't know. Okay, maybe it's because of the recording, because I'm recording in 4K. It might affect the performance. Okay, so what we need is this guy, not this guy, this guy. Why? Because this ship is not changing shape, but it's only transforming. And in the dot world, that would mean, in the dot world, that would mean if I edit my, let me put this on manual. If I edit my collision object here, and if I am using my collision object that doesn't have keys on the top level, actually I think it's best I show you. Okay, so let's start with this guy. Animated ship selected, there's nothing here. Okay, static object, cooking, so basically if we choose animated ship as our collision object, .NET doesn't have to calculate the collision shape per frame, because it has transform values. If we had to, I'm just going to check my memory usage. If we used the ship instead, okay, so I just need to reopen my scene. I guess it's going to speed up things. I'm just going to put this on manual, and I'm just going to reopen my scene. So let's say maybe it's about time. Okay, let's see if it freed some, and I need to probably clean my other scene as well. Okay, so let me just quickly reopen my scenes, and then if I, for example, the only reason that I would have to use deforming is when I have a character and the vertices are moving around, basically, and but this is not the case now, so it's not necessary to recalculate the collision mesh every frame, and obviously that's not ideal. Okay, let's open our scene real quick. I need more RAM. Oh, this is not the right one. Sorry. Okay, the file size is growing because of the stashes we have inside, but I think it makes no difference. Almost. Okay, so the thing we are, okay, so the animated ship is here now. It just didn't continue. So I'm going to turn the flag on here because I want to see if it's working. Let's go see the ship. Okay, is this the let's turn off the object itself. Just want to see that it's okay, it's moving. And now if we go into its options. We can make sure that use deforming geometry is off because we don't need it. And then again, later on we're going to create a VDB, but we don't need it here now. But in the bullet data, we need to still observe what we are colliding our geometry with, and this is definitely not what we want. Although you can, if you have primitive connectivity set appropriately, you can turn on this, but it's still gonna give you a nasty shape. So I suggest using concave. Basically anything that is not an RBD but a collision object, concave is generally fine. Possibly a little slower, but it's just as accurate as it can get. Okay, so let's turn off Show Guide Geo. So I think now we are ready for our first RBD. Seem to see how it looks, but then we notice another thing, that obviously we don't want to simulate the distance that is covered for this frame range. So remember where we put that static equals 0, so that's going to help. And then the other thing that's going to help is changing the simulation start time. So we can put it to 84, maybe we can put it to 76. So let's go there and say start at 1076. Okay, so if we go somewhere here and dive inside, put this back on auto. So it's not, nothing is going to show at 75, but 76, everything gets initialized. And just before the touch, I think, well, I guess we can find 75 as well, but I'm going to stick to my simulation settings. Okay, so the other thing that I want is that I want this activation to happen gradually as the ship flying in. So what I want is I want to create an attribute called active, but this time equals 1, where the ship is. So I'm going to bring my ship in here with an object merge. Well, yes, I want to bring it in here because it's simulation related. I want to keep it together. So let's bring it in at this level maybe. So let's go and get our ship from animated ship into this object. Okay, and now I'm going to create an attribute angle again. And I'm going to give it this little value, active equals 1, and I'm going to create a null, out, activate. And then what I want to do now is go in my .NET and drop in a multi-solver. I need to disconnect this guy and this guy. So my object goes into objects to be processed, input, solver goes here, all settings default, and then I'm going to create a subsolver. Hook it up here as well and dive inside. Well, actually we don't need a multi-solver. I think this should also work with, there's like too many ways to make things work in Houdini. That's why it's usually confusing. I think we can just hook it up to pre-solve. Yeah, this should work. Okay, and we're gonna dive inside, put an object merge, Now we're going to bring that out, active, in here, in our object merge that is inside the subsolver, and we're going to do a little transfer of activation. And since this happens in the .NET, it accumulates. So when the ship is out of range, things will not just stop working. And let's set the values. So we want to transfer only activate, and distance threshold 4 to 2. Well, in this case, fall off doesn't matter because the activate value is an integer. It's either 0 or 1. Okay, and the other thing we're gonna do is that by experience I know these pieces are going ballistic and going away too fast, so inside the sim we can also use pop speed limit, which I have in my sim anyway. And I limited the maximum speed to 35 meters per second, maximum speed to 15. Okay, I'm gonna save and I'm gonna hit play and let's see what happens. And if it's too slow, I'm going to, well, the other thing I can show you is that you can always add another window. Meanwhile, we can do that because it's quite handy sometimes to see how you can increase your decrease your simulation times if you have a bottleneck somewhere. So I think these are all the options, and we don't need to. Okay, simulation around the geometry. Simulation. This is a new option also. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. And all the settings are. Oh no, sorry, we don't have gravity. Let's add in gravity. Okay, let's press play. Let's see how long this takes. First frames are usually not as fast, but then it kind of speeds up. No, but we did forget to start recording this, sorry, so let's pause that again. Okay, let's go back to 1076. Probably not a bad idea to reset the sim. And go inside, hit record. Now the performance monitor will show us which nodes are taking the most amount of time to solve this frame, and ideally we want majority of the time the .NET to take most of the work, and it seems like subsolver is taking majority of the time, so we can probably increase the somehow the quality of this by baking out the caches or not. So I'm gonna pause this now video and then come back to you once this play blast is finished. Okay, so I stopped the simulation because the subsolver itself is taking such a long amount of time, because object merge is taking such a long amount of time, and ideally we want to keep rigid body solver to be using the majority of the CPU share. So this is because we were activating pieces based on how far is the ship, but this is taking way too long processing time. So I'll just try to disable this now for now to see if it's going to make a big difference in terms of visual look. So let's press play again. Oh well, now nothing's activated obviously because everything is deactivated. So now it's super fast. So let's go like that one. Let's play again. Okay, let's make a play blast to see if this is gonna work from our shot camera. Always work from your shot camera. Okay, so let's do we have any lights? No? Okay, let's make a play blast. Where is the, yeah, here. And it's from, this shot is from 1040 to 1150. So well, our simulation is 1076. So let's go from 1076. Oops. 1150. And render current viewport, object types currently visible. These are new options in 16.5. There's a lot of new stuff in 16.5 that I wasn't aware. Okay, let's start this and I'll get back to you as soon as this is done. Okay, so this is finished. It took a little less than 2 minutes. So let's see. Okay, we have some funky business happening there. And I think that's due to the activation. The rock is trying to just snap out of its place before its time. So I'll give another go. Or maybe it's because of these antennas that are supposed to be broken or not there. It looks like it's just pushing it. Okay, let me try something else. I'll try to I'm gonna try to check. Okay, show guide geo. Okay, so I'll try to get rid of these. So let's go to our collision. Which is here, and if we turn on selection by 3D connected geo and maybe really not use these guys as, because they should break, right? They're very thin and we break them later. So if I just ditch them for now, is it gonna do the same thing? Okay, let's try. Okay, let's press play. And the next thing we'll be doing is how to cache this out appropriately so we can do our pop simulation before we do our particles, before we do our volumes, sorry. Which is all gonna be in one.net. Okay. Seems like nothing popping yet. Yeah, I think we're in the clear. So let me check with the last one. was in 92, so it's now or never. Okay, so that's fine, but what I'm going to show now is a bit more important. So what you can do is that the mPlay has a lot of neat features. So after you did your let's say you like this guy, and I want to record this, you can click on this little guy here, okay, and then I'm going to make another play blast now with the exact same settings, and I don't need to change anything here. I'm just gonna go make a play blast, and then it's going to make another play blast on the same window. However, now since because we pressed that guy in the sequence list, we have 2 play blasts, and we can do a comparison while this is going, and we can rename them, and then we can also, because there's more than one in the list, we can now play these as sorry, we know, where is it, view, yes, we can say 2 columns, and one will be the old one will be the new one. It's really good for comparison reasons. And so we can compare our simulations, which one's working, which one's not working. So let's just wait for this to go a bit more. It will significantly speed up once the pieces a little more apart. Yeah, we don't have a spinning piece anymore, which is good. We have more tiny pieces. And then you can obviously have more, 4 rows, 4 columns, 16 afterward. So it's easier to make comparisons. Okay, this is working for me. I'm going to stop this now. So then we can move on to the recording of this simulation. So here is the thing. This DOP import brings in all the pieces as geometry, and this is not how I'm going to record this, because I really don't have to, because I already have my pieces shattered here, and all I want to record is basically the point count, the changing point topology. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change this DOP import style to create points to represent objects, and this is only going to bring me the centroid points, and in this spreadsheet it's going to bring me all the information. And then what I can do now is that I'm going to write out a null, put a null here, say, let's put this guy here, let's call it out RBD points, and this now I have to cache, not with a stash but an actual cache. RBD points cache, okay, and then I'm saving from 1076, so I'm gonna say this longer than I might need, which is the whole range. And let's call this, let's create another folder for sims, which there is already, and let's call it, let's create a new folder, MountainRBD, and let's call it just $F. Well, you might want to use versioning as well, so let's create another folder called version 1, so that's version 1, and then $f.pgo.sc, obviously. Yeah, that's a good naming. Okay, and then we're gonna go npc save, sorry, we're gonna go file save, because we're ready. And you can cache this out in the background or save to disk, but I'm just going to save to disk for now. Well, actually, let's go save to disk in background so we can show what it does. So you can open a new monitor now called Render Scheduler, and Houdini is going to launch another Houdini in the command line and cache this out for you while you are still able to work, depending on your memory usage, obviously. So the next thing we can do now is that, because we have these points being cached out, so how do we move our static object? That's with transform pieces. Transform pieces. Where are you? So the first input is the geometry to transform. Second input is the template points. And second, sorry. And now we're gonna have our pieces being moved again by the points. And the reason I'm doing is that now I have the ability let's call this modify pieces here. Let's say you want to change the UVs, but you don't want to bother with a new simulation. This is fine. Let's say you want to replace each one of these pieces with a higher resolution piece, and this is still fine as long as you are not losing this vital information. I don't think this one is necessary, I'm not sure, but the name is fine. You need to keep, so as long as you have the piece shape in a similar place. So for example, let's do an example. Let's do a for loop. Meanwhile, let's check our caching is at 27% now. So let's do a for loop. For loop for each named, for each connected piece, or how shall we do it? For each primitive, for each number. So we can do this. Are these, yeah, so we can use this path actually. So let's say for each named primitive, but instead of name we're going to use path, which should work now. So if I go here I should get let's put it here. Should be seeing only one. Well, I'm just gonna double check with a new scene editor. It may not be showing. Okay, things get stuck in Houdini, so that's how you fix it. So let's say I did this wonderful simulation, but I am not able to export it because the other renderer doesn't support it anymore. So now what I can do is that because I'm still keeping all the necessary information, I can now triangulate this mesh. Well, sorry, one more thing. Yeah, obviously this is still a packed object, so I need to unpack this at this stage. But I need to make sure that I pass on the name appropriately, and even the path probably, and then I do my modifications so it's triangulated now, and then I can pack it back again. And I want to make sure that I pass on the name and path. So basically it's exactly as it comes in, Well, I don't need this name attribute here, so I can delete that one because that wasn't in there. So that's the little comparison. Path, same, but now it's triangulated and it will render. And maybe I even want to fuse. Things do break during simulations. You can create the UVs if you forgot to add UVs. You can create additional detail or whatsoever this way. And now let it just process the information. And since okay, 5,786 pieces, all triangulated and much more friendly to work now. And then what we can do is that the other thing we can do, so this is the, let me just double check to say 5%. So now if I plug this guy in here, it should do exactly the same thing. And I just saved myself a whole lot of time. If I keep getting notes based on things like UVs are not working, the asset is broken downstream, etc. And this way you can fix your simulations much faster. This is a much more efficient way to do this. So let's put this guy, the green guy. Oh, and obviously what we can do is that we should check if we have the, okay, error badge, where is the, I'm going to turn on the it's already on, so I don't have any gearbox here. That means that I can put this in a full compile swap. Okay, and this should now process much faster. I just have to turn on multi-thread when compiled. And let's reset this to see if it's gonna make, oh, done. Oh my god, this is really fast. Is it? Oh, is my screen stuck again? I'm on manual. Okay, not that fast, man. It should be quite faster. Yeah, it is much faster. Okay, there's one thing I don't understand. Why is it slowing down so much? Are we duplicating the geometry here somehow? Let me double check. Unpack, divide. Okay, unpack. We got. Look at the name P0. We got the name P0. This shouldn't slow it down. Okay, more triangles maybe, but I am not so sure. Anyway, the geometry is good now to work with. But I'm just going to leave this on the side, and I'm going to go back here because we are staying in Mantra, but I'm going to just leave this here in case it's needed. Let's call it RBD. Other renderer, no, let's call it RBD, post sim cleanup. So you can remove a piece, you can add a piece, and so on and so forth. It's just gonna work. Okay. The next thing now we're gonna do is we're gonna create our debris points. So let's drop in. Well, you can do this two ways. You can use the shelf tool, which under rigid bodies you can find the debris, but that's not what we're gonna do. We're gonna create a debris source by ourselves, and I already have the good values for this. So that will be $50,000. Edge debris, 1,000 surface, radius is fine, search points 50, rest frame is not 1001, it's 1077, I guess. Let me see. Alright, 76 actually. 76. Okay, so now ideally, if we press play, we should get points being emitted along the edges of broken pieces. Okay, and what I'm gonna do now is that, because this is gonna come with a lot of additional attributes, again, I will again clean. I sometimes wonder if my attribute deletes are my bottleneck because I just overuse them, but I want to delete everything but the velocity. Okay, delete all attributes but, well, okay, so then what I want to do is I want to create a random mass, but not just every particle as a random mass, based on so I want to have some bigger chunks with different values. So let's create a VOP. Let's call it random mass. Let's dive inside. Let's create a turbulent noise. The P, bind export, call it mass. Okay, but maybe I'll enter the values I already had. Amplitude 2.8, and if we hook it up to the color, then we should see it better. Yeah, okay. Because the noise, the random will just give basically noise, but that's not what I want. Okay, I'm gonna save my scene as we had progressed. Okay, and then I'm gonna create a pop net. So let's create our pop net, and let's actually put a null here. And let's call this out debris source. Okay. And now let's create our pop net. Debris simulation. Hook it up to the first input, color it black, and this also because that's the source. Let's set the start frame to 1076, and let's dive inside. So by default, that's what's happening. Obviously, that's not what we want. I'm gonna set my range here to 1076 also. Okay, so now I want a constant birth rate of 200,000. I want my source to be points coming from the first context, which is fine. And I want a life expectancy of 1 and variance of 1, which is normal, and I want inherent velocity of 2. These are just values that I kind of used and then worked for me, but obviously we still have a lot to add. Okay, and then we need to add gravity, of course, and I want a bit of a pop drag, and a little bit of air resistance, but don't forget to turn off mass, because it's this way it's not going to ignore. Okay, and then I want a bit of a pop interact. And I want a little bit of clumping. This is the easy way to do some clumping. Ignore mass as well. Turned off. Okay, so now we're going to add our collision objects. So remember, now because we already created these ones and we did it right, we can steal it from here without recreating it again. But I'm just going to go put on manual. So I want these guys coming in. Here, so I just copy and paste it. I need to put a merge. But when you do this manually yourself, have the collision objects be on the left input, because effective relationship is set by default to left input affect right input. And that's going to work better like that. And then remember the comparison that we did for having RBD solver and the volume sample. Yeah, so now you can have the collision guide just turned on just to check that it's working. Yes, it's working, and this is gonna make a and if you want, you can set this on primarily to use volume collision, and this should now, okay, let's disable the animated ship. Let's see now if the pieces are going to start sliding on the ground, or if they're going to go through. Are we? Yeah, I think they are. Yes, we are colliding. Okay, but some passing. But now we need to give some physical attributes to particles. So we want a little bounce maybe, and a lot of friction. Okay, and now it's gonna basically get stuck. And then we want the ship obviously to collide, but we haven't created a VDB of our ship yet, so we need to do that, and we're gonna do that in the animated ship here. And again, I'm going to so this geometry is a bit finicky, so it might have some gaps or so. So I'm going to create another VDB for this guy, and that's gonna work with me scattering points. So turn off relax iterations, start with 1,000,000 points as one extra zero, and create a VDB from particles. You can copy the voxel size to radius scale, and the minimum radius set to 0 because we don't have a condition here, and So that's what we have. Let's hook it up to VDB. Now let's go back in our popnet. Let's enable this guy. Let's say use volume collisions and show me what I have here. It's gonna give us the VDB shape that will be calculated for collision. And while this only has to be done once because the deforming geometry tick box is turned off. Okay, still calculating. Okay, I'll come back once this is over. Oh, it's over. Okay, so this looks like it has a lot of holes, so maybe we need to give it. That's because it created a very heavy geo. That's why. Maybe we can increase the size of the VDB. I think that's better if we increase it to 0.2 from 0.1. Okay, this was a bit heavy maybe. Let's put on manual. Okay, let's go to here, here. Let's go to 0.2. Let's dive inside again. That's 0.2. Okay, let's go auto update. It's gonna load in. It's gonna show us the new. Okay, it's a bit bulky, I think, but I think that'll do. That'll do the job. Okay, so let's turn that off and possibly play again. And one last thing, sorry, we need to bring in our rocks, obviously, and that's gonna be coming from transform pieces. One second. Okay, so I guess we can directly use this guy. And I think we should create a VDB out of it as well. So let's create a VDB from polygons. Let's scrub a little bit. Okay. So maybe let's start with a voxel size of 1. Okay, it's a bit too much, maybe. Too big, maybe 0.5. It's a bit more. Okay, and let's call it now. Let's give it a now. Let's say out mountain sim VDB. Okay, let's call a null here also for here, and let's call this out mountain sim geo. Okay, and if we go dive inside here, and now I'm going to show you we can make actually a static object by yourself. So you can just drop in a static object, obviously, and for the sub path, this is what the default object creates, but what we're going to get is the actual geometry. So I'm going to lock this parameter and I'm going to drag out mountain sim geo there. And it's not a deforming object, so we leave it as it is. I don't want bounce, whatever. So for volume collisions, I'm going to change the mode to volume sample, division method to by size, and then the proxy volume is here that we just created. So if I go inside now, turn on this guy, I have the geo, but that's not what I want, and I have this. If I scrub a little bit up, this is changing topology, this needs to be turned on, and if I scrub a little bit, things will start moving around. calculating. And because I scrubbed it, it's calculating per frame. Okay, so maybe I go like that. Okay, that's going to give us some breakup as well. Obviously not very high res, but this can be easily done. Okay, so if I now activate everything, and I should have a semi-decent particle simulation as well. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to save this scene, make a play blast so we can do a comparison. Well, we can probably turn on the ship as well. So let's turn on our animated ship, where we want to see only the ship itself, not the VDB. And then let's turn on our debris simulation, which is, let's also give it a good name. So we want debris, and we want to bring out only the debris from here, not the whole thing. So under the object merge, because this is by not normally shelf tools handle these, but this is actually what it's doing at the back end. So it's just going to bring out the particles now, so we can cache them out as well. So let's call it null here, out debris, and let's go to my file cache. And let's give it a name, mountain debris, and starting from 1076 to 1300. Let's give it a name like we have here, so we keep the convention, naming convention intact. Same MountainRBD debris. Okay. Do we need the RBD? Yeah, well, let's remove that. Okay. And I'm gonna save this. I'm gonna cache this out, and then once it's over, we'll make a play blast, and then we'll call our lesson complete for the RBD mountain tip. Okay, so oh wow. Well, it's been actually a while, so I guess it's okay. Let's reopen the last scene, hoping that I saved soon enough. Yep, very good. So let's go to our view. So last time we were caching the particles. So we have the particles. For visualization purposes, I'm going to put a merge here. No, not file merge. Merge here. Actually, because we have 2 elements already, maybe we can just start building our render nodes together. So these are the simulations. Let's put a geometry node, and let's call this mountain. So mountain static will come from here, so we don't have to do anything. Okay, let's turn off the lighting. Mountain static will come from here. So mountain tip sim will come from here, and it's going to be not object merged, but it's going to be loaded with a file, because I will explain very briefly as soon as I made the clay blast. So you have the mountain debris. Okay. Actually, yeah, we need to cache that out, but we're not going to cache it out now, but I'm going to show you the example with the MountainRBD. Okay, let's put an object merge temporarily. Let's lock it. This guy goes in here. Let's get another one. Let's call this mountain tip render. Let's call this MountainRBD render. Let's get this path. Oh, no, I didn't copy it good. Let's go back again. Copy the path. Actually, let's go copy parameter, paste relative. Okay, auto, missing frame, send it to no geo. So if you send it to farm before 1076, it will not error. Turn on delayed load, and you can change this to pass this primitive to come up like that. But now we're going to do a play blast, so we're going to leave it as it is, so we see everything. And then the last thing we want is, so this guy is here. This, we don't need to see this now as well. Okay, so that's what we made so far. Let's do another save. Let's do a play blast. See what we have. Oh, and because this camera is from 1040, so let's go to 1040, and now we have obviously these rocks disappearing. So what we can do at this mountain tip render is, actually let's go in, because come from here and these points here, and then in right under this we can put a time shift. And we can say clamp the first frame, which is 1076. So it's gonna always, so there will be always something before 1076, but it will be static, which is what we want anyway. And then we'll break, and the particles will come out. Okay, let's do a quick play blast now. For our entire time range, 1040 to 1150, and start. So the other thing that we're going to do is that we're probably going to get 10% of those particles and instance rocks on them, so we get more variety of particles and rocks in between. We can probably go with higher numbers as well. Okay, let's see. Cool, so this is working for now. Okay, let's color these black. They're gonna be rendered, and let's give them a nice outline. Render nodes. Okay, let's carry it here too, so we have a workflow top to bottom. Okay, thank you for watching. This is the end of the first RBD part. Next one we will be doing, let me see what we can do, because we are kinda, I mean, I have the project already done obviously, but I am just making the parts quite random. Render, no, not here, here. So I guess next part we can for a change. Okay, so for a change we can focus on this volume. Alright, so in the next lesson we're gonna do the volumes, the trailing volume, because there's a few more elements every now and there. Okay, what else? It's not in this one also. Okay, cool. Thank you for watching and have a good day.